You're listening to the Cambridge Insider Podcast. On today's episode, hosts Stephen and Mariah discuss proactive strategies for re-enrollment. Today's episode is sponsored by Cardinal Spellman High School. Cardinal Spellman is a private college preparatory high school established in 1958, located in Brockton, Massachusetts. Thanks for listening.
Cambridge Insider Podcast time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cambridge Insider Podcast. As we record, it is the beginning of spring in the US, which is always an exciting time because the winter is something of the past for the most part. We have a couple of days that are still cold here or there. It's also exciting because a lot of our school partners are working to re-enroll a lot of their students, which is very exciting for the years to come and to see how students have progressed. We'll be talking a little bit about that a little bit later. And it's also sort of the kickoff of the peak enrollment season. We see a lot of new enrollments and our sales team and our Cambridge marketing teams are really ramping up efforts as we head into this spring season. Mariah Thompson, as always, how are you?
I'm doing good. I am tricking myself because it's still in the 30s here. So I have my bright green sweater on, but it is a wool sweater. So I'm tricking to my brain that we're in springtime while it still does not feel like spring. But with all the things going on school-wise, it feels like spring during the workday. So we'll take it.
That's it. We'll absolutely take it. We'll be talking a little bit about re-enrollment today specifically. Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so as Stephen said, this is a time where we're seeing a lot of new re-enrollments. Even though we're before the end of the school year, we're getting ready for the next school year. This is the time. A lot of admissions directors know exactly what we're talking about. This is the time. So we just want to help support and aid our schools and future schools. If you're listening, if you're looking for someone to help support your student recruitment and enrollment and retention, that is something that we do. We want to be a resource to all schools who have international programs. And so we want to give best practices and support to specifically our school partners, but to all programs on what they should be doing right now. I know it's not the end of the school year yet, but there are things that we can do to prepare for the re-enrollment that takes place. Because sometimes students don't make a decision until the end of the school year. But if we can do stuff now to help aid their decision as it comes later on in a few months, there are things that we can do now. With our histories of working with schools, we've seen schools step in, do certain tasks. We've seen Cambridge Network. If you're a partner of ours, we've stepped in and done certain tasks. So we're going to go over that today just to help you in aid re-enrollment. Stephen, before I ask you anything, is there anything else you wanted to say to support that?
I think it's important to sort of, look at the context of why re-enrollment is important. We often see our school partners overlook re-enrollment and sort of be very, very focused on new students and new enrollment. Re-enrollment is essential on a couple of factors. Number one, when you think financially, which, any student enrollment, be it domestic or international, has a financial benefit to the school. Specifically with international students, there's a lot of resources that are given upfront, both by the school and by your agency partner like Cambridge in recruiting a student. If a student only stays at your program for 1 year, you don't see a lot of the financial benefit of that student being there because a lot of the investment that you did initially to recruit the student is then offset by that first year's tuition. So it's only really by year 2, year 3, year 4, the re-enrolling years that you'll see the financial benefit. So that's point number one, super important to think about. Point number two, similar, but really talking about creating a community, a diverse community, thinking about the benefit of an international student for your community as a whole. And that benefit, again, really you only see that come in year 2, 3, and 4. Year 1 often for international students is difficult. They are learning how to navigate a new, a new situation, a new school, a new culture. So they might not sort of feel comfortable to speak and to, contribute their cultural diversity to your community in year one. So again, if you're not re-enrolling that student, year one, the cultural benefit is not as much as what you're going to see year 2, 3, 4, when they are comfortable, when they're involved in clubs, society, sports, when they're speaking out in class, when they're giving that sort of vibrant contribution. So those are really two important things to think about. Why is re-enrollment so important? And I would almost go as far as to say, although I won't quite say it, re-enrollment is more important than new enrollment. So really an important topic that we want to talk about today.
Yeah, and so today, as we aid this, we're going to be giving some proactive strategies for schools, and I'll be addressing them, and Stephen will be hitting some examples and some explanations to it. So this first strategy we have for schools is to address challenges early. Now is the time to troubleshoot. If a student is expressing concerns, struggling academically, or feeling disconnected, let's intervene before it becomes a reason not to re-enroll. Schools should be proactive, identifying patterns, have open conversations, and find solutions. Stephen, with your experience and history with working with schools, what is an example of this if you've seen a school come in and be proactive?
Yeah, absolutely. Mariah, we see examples of this every single year on both sides of the spectrum. Either schools maybe not being as proactive and schools on the other side of that being really proactive. And I mentioned just now that first year in particular, whether a student enrolls in the 9th, the 10th, or even the 11th grade, that first year can be really challenging. We specifically had, I don't want to call it an intervention, but we partnered quite closely with the school on how we can improve and worked with them on how we can improve their school support and their student-facing support about 2 years back, because we found that there was a pattern of students doing exactly what we're talking about now, enrolling for a year and being incredibly unhappy, either because of a social, emotional sort of, something brewing, or that, or in isolation, or a combination of that and maybe academically not doing so well. So we really worked with the school to help identify on a monthly basis in the beginning, and it's since gone to like a quarterly basis, but really looking and evaluating each student emotionally, socially, how are they doing? How are they fitting in? Are they involved? How are things going in their host home? And academically, are there sort of red flags that we can see early that we can help them navigate now, so that doesn't become another stressor to their lives? And since we've brought that in with a school partner, they've had 100% re-enrollment rate over the last 2 years since we, introduced that. Previous to that, their re-enrollment rate was 42%.
Wow.
So thinking about, again, the benefits of re-enrollment and just, it's sort of our responsibility, if we're going to host these kids as a school, to give them every opportunity to succeed. These are teenagers. They don't always know what they're feeling. They understand that they're feeling, a certain emotion or a certain way about a thing, be an academic issue or a social emotional issue. It really is important for us to be there, to be able to support them, to help them to work through that. I think it's our responsibility to be able to provide that for them.
Yeah, that's really good. I just want to reiterate that 100% re-enrollment from 42% with a proactive approach. So we definitely put a stressor on that for schools to be doing that right now.
And you know what? Sorry, Mariah, I just want to add
a
quick small sort of example. That was the example, but a small addition to that is all that took was, at this program in particular, was on a monthly basis, our team and the school teachers, heads of departments would be checking in with that student, checking in on how that student's progress is doing. Teachers in the class would not only be commenting on what they're doing academically and how we can improve them, providing them the academic support, but also how are they doing socially? Do we see them sitting with friends? Are they communicating effectively? Do they know how to deal with their emotions when they get frustrated, or they maybe get something wrong or get something right? How are they dealing with that in the sort of context of the Western classroom? And that's all it took. And for many of the students, that conversation was, the student's doing really, really well there, here, and there. Maybe we're going to, encourage him or get him a student mentor to help him in the lunchroom to sit closer to other friends and maybe branch out a little bit from just an international group of friends. So for many students, it's not huge things. For other students, it's, you know what, the student's starting to struggle. There's a little bit of a red flag in the history, from the history teacher. How can we provide that additional support? And again, addressing that in August, September, October, it led to us not having to sort of get to May, June, July and go, the student either wants to go home permanently or, the student doesn't know how to deal with this. And this could be a case where the student doesn't re-enroll.
That's a really good takeaway for a school, just to be on a monthly basis, just taking a look at your international students, where they're at, and evaluating to see if you do need to be checking in a little bit more or if the monthly is okay. So that's a really good takeaway. Another takeaway that we see with schools taking a look at right now is our second proactive strategy, which is exploring scholarship opportunities. Financial concerns are often a deciding factor in re-enrollment. Schools should start reviewing scholarship options now, whether it's merit-based, need-based, or retention-focused incentive. By addressing affordability early, we can remove a major barrier to a student staying. Stephen, again, is there an example that you've seen this where you've needed to use a scholarship for a student? When would you suggest a school using scholarships? And even maybe when you don't think they should be using scholarships?
Yeah, great question. I mean, a lot of our conversations with our school partners centers around affordability, right? International education is no doubt expensive. So using scholarships and discounts strategically can not only boost a school's enrollment, but can also provide that sort of impetus for re-enrollment. Sometimes we will have families coming to us directly and just saying, you know what, in the last year where our students been enrolled, our business hasn't done quite as well, or the economy in our home country isn't doing quite as well. We saw this about 2 years ago when specifically the South Korean currency compared to the dollar was down significantly. So even those schools, quote unquote, weren't pushing up their annual tuition by a large percentage. Many of them weren't pushing it up at all. That price had in the last year gone up significantly because it's a dollar price, which has stayed the same, but the exchange rate has not. So in South Korean currency, it was significantly more. So working through that, helping schools understand that, hey, there are exchange rates at play here. There are people who have businesses that may not have done as well. Many families, that we have obviously can afford to be here and they love the value that they get. But there are many families that financially, this is a big challenge for them to send their students. So yes, they deserve the support because they are sort of putting everything on the line. But if there's an opportunity for us to offer financial incentive or a discount or a scholarship, it not only shows your buy-in to that student and proves to the family that we are willing to sort of take a step with you in this progress, which is really culturally a significant thing specifically for our students coming from Southeast Asia. But just on the financial day-to-day, it's going to help significantly. So, again, sometimes we get students and families that come to us and say, I just can't afford it. So really for schools to think proactively, how can we make this work? Is it a payment plan? Is it a discount of X amount of dollars that can really help that? And Cambridge are very well versed in how we run those conversations. From a school's perspective, if that is something that you're willing to do and you're willing to engage in a payment plan or a discount, we can certainly help with the translation and relaying that to the families in a way that is professional, that makes them show that we're part of the solution as the school partner, but also, helping them understand that this is something that is unique and they should be very, very thankful for it because, of course, schools also have their own financial concerns. And then also just thinking sort of proactively, if in the past year, which we've seen often in a specific region, so we had a school about a year and a half ago, or maybe 2 years ago now, around this time, that in their vicinity, suddenly there were 2 or 3 other schools that weren't there the year before that had started international programs and were being very aggressive with their re-enrollment, with the enrollment of students. We sort of did that research, went to them and said, listen, there are 2 or 3 schools within a 50-mile radius of where you are in the city. They priced here. They weren't here last year. They've gone on sort of this very aggressive campaign. How are we going to make sure that we keep our students? And part of that conversation was, if they are priced a little bit lower, it's important to take that into consideration and look at, is this possible for us to sort of offer that discount? We ended up offering a slight discount to all of their re-enrolling students, and again, got a very high percentage of re-enrollment. So just being proactive about thinking about what things cost and understanding that is a huge motivator for families as they enroll and as they re-enroll as well.
Yeah, if you're listening and you're hearing all this from Stephen and it still sounds a little confusing, like Stephen had mentioned before, we are definitely here to help support you in those conversations, in that research, which does lead to our last proactive strategy, which is use Cambridge as a resource. So we've talked about the monthly check-ins, we've talked about finances. What do you want to talk about, just what's an extra thing that we can help them support our school partners in for re-enrollment to use this as a resource as?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just as it sort of gets said there as the third resource is or as the third sort of strategy is use Cambridge as a resource. We have seen every single type of re-enrollment story there is to see. We have numerous school partners, numerous re-enrollments every single year. So whether it be a conversation about a student specifically, whether it be a conversation about an agency and what that agency thinks about a school partner, what that agency believes about a region of America, or sometimes even what that agency believes because the media is blowing things up. We see that a lot with geopolitics, right? As the example of like, the relations between China and the US, and what does that mean for my student that's there? Maybe I don't want them to continue their journey, not knowing that on the ground at their school program, they're incredibly well looked after. They love, they are part of the community. They are part of just this vibrant, culture that is on that school, ground every single day. So we understand those little niche challenges that maybe you're not aware of. And again, our goal here is 100% re-enrollment for all of our school partners. Why? Because we want to give you that financial benefit. But more importantly, we want to give the schools and the students, not just your international students, but the domestic kids that are interacting and gaining from this experience of having an international student with them in the classroom. We want to give them that opportunity to thrive. And that opportunity comes in year 2, year 3, year 4, when you've forged those relationships, when you've made great friends. A Vietnamese student and an American student from Syracuse, New York, sitting next to each other, right? That's part of the goal here. And we want to be able to give them that opportunity. So connect with Cambridge. We have an FEA team. We have an SSA team. We have our sort of development team that run this podcast. You are in contact with so many different parts of the Cambridge network as a whole, and each one of them can play an important role in re-enrollment. So reach out to us if this is a concern, or if you just want to have the conversation in general and say, maybe I'm not sort of, crossing all my T's and dotting all my I's. What can I be doing right now proactively? Reach out to us. We can sort of evaluate where your program is and take it from there.
Yeah, and I just want to add to like the importance of re-enrollment. Of course, like it's a financial benefit for everyone, even a student too. Like they're investing in their mental health too, because we're a love, guide, nurture type of company. And so if a student is bouncing around from school to school, having different principals, different teachers, making new friends, like that's not the healthiest plan for a student. And so if a student can stay at the same school for 4 years, it's just it's a better mental health benefit for them as well too. So we want to see that for our students. So again, we are willing to help for every aspect of re-enrollment.
Couldn't agree more. Mariah, as always, just an absolute consummate professional in running the podcast. I appreciate your research. To all of our listeners, remember to like, listen, and subscribe. And we will catch you around the next episode of the Cambridge Insider podcast. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Cambridge Insider podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to never miss an episode. For more Cambridge updates, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Have a great week and stay connected.